Hello there, I'm Denise Jones and I'm an area demonstrator for Dorset and Guernsey area of NAFAS, and I'm here today to give you a demonstration of a flower arrangement using some supermarket flowers and some florist flowers. So last time I was demonstrating, it was last summer, and I did a couple along with several other demonstrators when we thought lockdown was only going to be a few months. So I cannot believe that actually we're now in February, almost a year later, and we're still in this pandemic is still going on. But I'm delighted to be back for you to do another demonstration, and I hope you enjoy it and that you get inspired to keep on flowering even though you're not able to go to your flower clubs. Okay, so the demonstration today is called My Secret Garden, and this is kind of based on really years and years ago. When I was younger, I had piano lessons, and in an evening I used to watch the programme called The Secret Garden, and it's all about creating different levels and little nooks and crannies within this flower arrangement. So as you can see, I've actually got my container already, and this is a long, low, flat tray, and in there I've already taken a piece of floral foam, and it's the more eco variety because we are trying to step away from the nasty green stuff, and I've taken one block of the floral foam and I've sliced it in half lengthways, and I've put the two halves side by side firmly fixed in the tray, secured with a little bit of florist tape, which is nice and waterproof, and that keeps that nice and sturdy within there. And then what I've done is I've actually covered it with some beautiful bun moss, and this moss actually came from a friend of mine who's having their roof cleared and said to me, "Do you want any moss, Denise?" And I was like, "Yes please, I'm a flower arranger, I'm a florist, aren't I?" Not realising that when she said, "I've got 40 bags for you." So anyway, I just had the 5. So I've covered it with moss and I've secured it in a number of places with some little wire, and to do that you just get a wire, just a stub wire, and you bend it in over to create a little, what we call a hairpin, and then I've snipped off so it's kind of like the length of your thumb, and then what I've done is I've just pushed it in places to secure all over, keep the moss in place. Around the edges I have secured that with a hot glue gun, just so that it doesn't obviously fall out all over the table. And then I've just meandered a little bit of ivy, or Hedrohelix as the Latin name is known, and so we're kind of ready, and it's all the way around there, ready to go. So I'm going to start, just going to move that forward just slightly, and again centralise that so you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by putting some uprights, because when you look at your garden, obviously you've got long pieces at the back of your garden, and this is kind of a secret garden, it's going to be a little bit overgrown. So I've got some split cane here, and just going to take a few pieces together, and so this is based on really an inspiration from a very well known in the floral world of a European designer called Gregor Lersch, who I saw many years ago, and he had a book out at the time called The Elements and Principles of Design, and his design is based on the elements and principles as they study in Europe. Now in the UK we have 7 principles and 5 elements, and in Europe there are so many, so it's a really interesting read if you get the chance to have a look. So I'm just going to turn that around, and what we're just doing is creating a little wave, this nice linear form of the cane going in. I'm just going to put some in the back as well, and this is going to become apparent later when we can kind of weave in and across, because in traditional arrangements, when I learnt flower arranging, you were encouraged to have one point where the flowers radiated from. With this one here, they are going to be in different areas, as you'll see as it develops. So So there we have the cane that's all gone in. So I've got my little box of tricks over here. Some absolutely gorgeous. I'm just going to turn that over. And this is the Phormium tenax, or New Zealand flax. And this is the pink stripe. Quite obvious there because it has a pink stripe. Really, really gorgeous. And what we're going to do is to create a little bit of depth. So this is the front and this is the back here. And to create a bit of depth and a little bit of structure, I'm going to place these in the back. So we don't take up too much of our floral foam, what we do is we cut at an angle and then we cut up the base of the stem till we come to our cross piece, and that creates like a little dagger. So that is going to go really well into our floral foam. It's really, really strong, the Phormiums. So if you are cutting them in your garden, if you're really, really careful, because you definitely need a pair of scissors, you won't be able to just break them and pull them out of where they are placed. They are really strong. I mean, in New Zealand, the natives, they actually used to weave these to create part of their roofs and all their tribal clothing because they are so strong. Now this one is gone a little bit curvy, but we're kind of going to go with this in the design. So when I started reading Gregor's book many years ago, I'd got quite used to all the flowers radiating from a point. And lots of his designs, the actual leaves that they put in and the branches and the flowers, they don't always go in the same direction. As they would, as I say, in a garden, they don't all just grow straight. They do grow in different areas. So now we've got some quite uprights of a quite bold background there. I'm just going to add one or two of these really sweet pussy willow or salix. So this is actually some that I had at Christmas. It just lasts and lasts and lasts. It's really beautiful. And I like the fact that some of the little fluffy catkins have all been dropping off of it. Because again, if it was there grown in nature, obviously it would be falling off there. And we're just creating layers of all different heights so that it's pleasing to the eye. And what's really lovely is the fact that the repetition, I'm just going to turn that around so you can see. So we're repeating the form, and now I'm going to place them in the back. Again, so just your eye goes through to the back of the design. And the texture from these little fluffy catkins are quite a contrast to the quite shiny of the Phormiums there that are quite dominant as well at the moment. I'm just going to place one or two pieces lower down. And already you can see almost kind of like a thicket, that there's different areas to play with when we start putting our flowers in. So to begin with, I'm actually going to start. I have a little nooch in my box over here. I've got some, because we're February, and I thought, well, I won't keep it just to red for Valentine's Day, because Valentine's will have been and gone. But it is still quite nice to be romantic, and I'm sure if you did have a secret garden, it might be a lovely for having a romantic walk. So I've got some well, standard carnations they are, or dianthus is the Latin name, so we have quite a number of these. And they're out full because they have been in water, conditioning, for a few days. Now just a quick tip, if they're quite tight when you actually have them and you want them a little bit more full in bloom, you take off all the leaves, you don't need the leaves. If you just take it between your first 2 fingers and give it a very gentle roll, and then you can slightly just give it a little fluff, then they will open. So they were very popular, obviously many years ago in the 60s and 70s. It was very on trend for bridal bouquets and flower arrangements, and then they went very out of fashion. However, there's lots of lovely varieties nowadays, and I mean, there's some gorgeous ones out at the moment, like antique colours, like vintagey, and there's a really nice green one, kind of like pistachio green, so that's, again, just very different colours, and they're available all year round. So a great go-to flower. And you can create lots of different shapes with them as well, so you could mass them together. And actually, when you mass them together, they kind of look a little bit like a hydrangea. So, just poking through in between all of the different layers that we have, standing like soldiers in a row, or as we're down here in Chesil Beach in Dorset, when you look along the coast, you have a whole line of the fishermen when they go mackerel fishing around the bay, and there's literally like fisherman after fisherman after fisherman. So it kind of reminds me a little bit like that. At the moment, I think I quite like the fact that they're of a similar level at the top, and then they're a little bit staggered down. So they're our bold form, and they're really quite bright at the moment, so we kind of need to soften that a little bit. So I've got some what I call a filler flower. So this is Alströmera. I had a mixed bunch here of Alströmera. So I've got 2 colours of the Alströmera that I'm familiar with, that I'm certainly familiar with. A beautiful, beautiful pinky red one here. And then we have almost like a blush one with purple, pinky purple tints on the edges. And then just down here in my little bucket behind myself, I've just got some leftover Alströmera. I'm just going to show you the difference in the variety, because on here you've actually got the different heads of the Alströmera growing on the same stem. So on these ones they're single-headed. On the stem you've got one stem and then they branch out. On these ones you've actually got the different flower heads growing on the stem, and that is really beautiful. So, and that is Charmilla, which actually means charming beauty. I think you'll agree that it is very charming. So we have 3 different kinds of Alströmera. Now we've gone quite high with the very linear forms of the New Zealand flax, so we kind of want a little bit of the flower at the top as well. So what I've actually done to extend the height of a flower stem, I've got a little flower pick here. So it's basically a little test tube with the stem already on it, and you fill it with water, and it's got a little cap on it. It's got a little cap on it there, so you've got a little flower pick, fill it with water, put the cap on it. Make sure that you've cut your stem at an angle so it just pushes through nicely, and then you can have all that extension on your flower. So then that means then you can go quite high. I've already cut a little bit off the bottom there. I'm just going to place these ones in the back. I'm just going to tuck them in between the canes. And then you can just see then, they're just poking through, really interesting behind the different leaves that we have high up. So that's got a little wiggle on it. There's a stem again. What I might do is just swap that over, because with this design, it's not a vegetative design, because that would be that everything grows in the natural in its natural environment to be called a vegetative design. As I say, this is just based really on a parallel. It's going to be a front-facing design, so whilst I am obviously making sure we have depth in there, you know, I'm not going to worry too much at the moment. And I'm just going to, I'm not really liking it because, as I say, the actual Alstroemeria stem is curving, so it doesn't want to go in that extra little pick. So what I've done is I've gone with nature, and we're just going to place it to the right hand side. And we'll put some slightly shorter ones in the back. Now I think red and the pink are going to look gorgeous together, because the throats of the Alstroemeria have got a little bit of pink in as well. When you look closely, they're really soft and pink in the centre. So that's going to pick up the pink of the dianthus. And what's great about covering your foam with the moss is, with the bun moss, it's really it's quite easy to push through your stems, and they still hold them nice and firm in the floral foam. But I'm hoping at some point to see if I can get a really long kind of pin holder made, so that I can put a permanent pin holder in here, and it could all be arranged in water. So that's a little bit like a watch this space, so I'm going to hope my other half might have a go at making me one. It's a bit of a handyman. I hope you've all been keeping safe and well during this pandemic, and been keeping busy. Such a shame we haven't been able to meet at our flower clubs, isn't it? So another reason why, obviously, you know, several areas, not just our Dorset and Guernsey area, but lots of the areas, you know, clubbed together with their demonstrators to see if we could do some demonstrations for you, so you could enjoy the floral love whilst in your comfort of your own homes. So you can see the repetition of the white coming down, and now just to balance it, I'm just going to place some just the other side as well. There's quite a lot of space in this design at the moment, and obviously space is, you can say it's enclosed space, so the space is in between the plant material that we're putting in. Obviously space comes in 3D, so all around we have the space, but it's quite nice to obviously get your design balanced, not just visually making sure that it's balanced, but also physically. So you don't want to put too many things in the front to make it top heavy, else it will just flop forward, obviously. So that's why it is important to make sure you're putting things at the back of your design as well. Okay, so to pick out the pink of the carnations, and they're still quite heavy, I've got these absolutely, I love them, they're absolutely delightful, and this is Hypericum. And this variety is called Hypericum Coco Casino, which is really quite cute. Now years ago, like, I kind of only really realised, well, I only thought there was like sort of a red one, and I saw them grown in the garden as well as being able to buy them from the florist. But nowadays they come in all sorts of colours, really. They do a cream one called Hypericum Coco Avanti, which is really nice. Round about Valentine's Day you could get hold of one called Casino Tango, sorry, not Casino Tango, Coco Tango, which is kind of an orangey red, so quite a nice passionate sort of name to want to have them. And all sorts of red and all in between. So they're nice contrast in texture because they're really shiny, and really quite interesting to look at as well. And I'm going to place these within the design. I'm going to keep them quite high up, just really to take your eye up a little bit higher with the pink, and just to help that blend in with those carnations. I'm actually just going to bring those to the front. Just going to turn that round for you to see. So I brought them to the front even though we've got lower plant material. So again, I'm just trying to create this like layered look. So, you know, if you're thinking you've got a bit of an overgrown garden, of course, you know, there would be kind of things would be growing kind of all in different areas. I'm just going to turn it around to see where I can see where the colour goes. So by repeating the different plant material, because they're all radiating from different points in my floral foam, it's quite important to get the repetition of the colour and the plant material so that it creates your eye and movement and your rhythm around the design. So saying that, I'm just going to move that pink carnation just over a little bit. So I'm actually just going to take this one a little bit shorter, and again just towards the front a little bit. There we have the different layers going through. We'll just add a little bit of foliage just in between the flowers. I've just got some contrast, and we're just going to put a number of little pieces of eucalyptus, and then just a little bit of plant material a little bit lower down. I'm just going to place those in the back. Just have a little dig deep. So here we have some herbs. So the scent from this is lovely. So I like working with plant material that's scented, and herbs are a really good way of getting some scent into your design. So this is rosemary, or Rosmarinus officinus. I'm just going to take off the lower little spikes, and this will just fill in a little bit at the back. Now rosemary will last out of water quite a long time, but it's still quite important to still condition it so that all these little leaves don't fall off too quickly. I've got little purpley flowers on at the moment as well. So just add a little bit of romance. What English garden wouldn't be right without any roses? So I've got some nice ivory roses. Now this is a round form, very similar obviously to the carnations, but we've got quite a lot of interest in the nice, obviously, spiral of the rose head. And then what we're going to do is just add our piece de la resistance, which is obviously our red rose, because it is the month of love. Now these ones are really nice frill on them. And what you do when you prepare a rose is, if you get them, if you just purchase them straight away from the supermarket, what you need to do is just take a couple of the outside petals off. They're the protective petals, okay, and you're left then with the head of the rose. Now these are quite short stemmed, so like I did earlier with the Alstroemeria, I've got these little picks already with water in. If you don't have these, what you could do is, if you buy orchids, for argument's sake, they already come in little test tubes. What you could do is you could take a little test tube to a kebab stick or a pre-used stem, and then you've got an instant, obviously, height that you could use. These are already pre-prepared with water in. I'm just going to make sure I just cut off the roses at an angle so that they carry on drinking the water. It's really important that when you're buying your flowers from the supermarket, that or if you have them given to you, that you carry on looking after and making sure they drink as much water as possible. So when you get them home, if you cut them at a good 45-degree angle. So what you do is you cut them at a 45-degree angle across, and what that does, it gives you the most surface area for the water to drink. Take off any foliage that you don't want to keep on there, because what happens is as the water goes up the stem, they'll branch out to feed the leaves, and if you're not going to use them, they're not needing, they're not decorative, we want that water to go right the way up to the flower head, so it's as turgid as possible for you to use. And what I would say is, if you're going to use them for flower arranging, you really need to leave them in a cool, dark place, ideally overnight, but a really good sort of 3 or 4 hours. But yeah, overnight really, if they're for something special. So I've just added 1 red rose right the way up the top there. As you can see, it's really picked out the pinky red of those darker alstroemeria. Now these red roses are in a mixed supermarket bunch, but if you were to buy them from a florist shop, they would be a lot larger headed. So around about Valentine's, they're absolutely amazing blooms out there for your flower arrangements. Probably be something called Naomi, which is a beautiful scarlety red rose, and very, very really velvety texture. I did have a little, we had a little demonstration of a mini posy, and we mentioned the Naomi there because it really is a gorgeous rose, or you could use Grand Prix. Very popular, very popular. So I'm just going to stagger these roses, and I think it is one of the probably most popular flowers that just say English country garden. And actually, just thinking back, the rose was probably one of the first flowers that really got me interested in, if I remember, sort of flowers. My mum had an amazing rose garden at home, and you may have heard of David Austin roses. Nowadays are very popular for bridal flowers, really blousy garden rose. And at the time we lived in Staffordshire, which was only a stone's throw from actual David Austin nurseries. And so back then the shops weren't really open on Sundays, so we'd have a little drive over to the garden centre, and we'd always come back with a new rose to plant in the garden. So we're just going to finish off with just a few red roses just down the bottom. I'm going to put a little bit of lower foliage in, but I'm not going to put too much, because I think the space and the element is really important, so that you can actually see the flowers in there as well. But yes, I did love making my petal perfume from my mum's rose garden, and it's probably now confession time. She may have already known, but obviously I was supposed to just use the petals that fell onto the garden, and occasionally, I'm really sorry Mum if you never knew, but you probably did, but I did pick the odd flower head for those gorgeous nice petals. And the scent, of course, the scent in the flowers in the garden flowers, as opposed to commercially purchased ones, I mean, the scent is just fabulous. I mean, the Naomi rose has a slight scent to it, so that is quite lovely. Okay, so what I'm going to just do is to just go against the grain of the growing flowers here. Just going to turn that around, and what I'm going to do is we're just going to take this steel grass. So I've got several pieces of steel grass. It's quite strong, and we're actually going to place it into the floral foam, and then we're just going to put it at a diagonal angle across our straight stems. So this goes against kind of that normal kind of radiating from one point. But in nature, not everything grows from one point. It will grow and intermingle. So this is what I'm actually going to do just next for you. I'm just going to put some uprights to start with and just weave it in and out, in and out, in and out. And it's just going to crisscross. When I first did this, I was kind of like, it didn't sort of sit right in my head. And then I realised, you know, obviously like you're saying, in flower arranging and in, you know, floral design, we could ask ourselves, what are the rules? But I think, you know, flower arranging is an art, and obviously the beauty will become in the eye of the beholder, the same as sculpture, painting. It's just that flowers are our medium for our flower arranging. So another reason why we can't call this a vegetative design is because vegetative design would be natural. All the plant material would be natural, usually, you know, seasonal, and how it grows. There would be no manipulation of plant material. So, you know, you wouldn't take, let's say, an aspidistra leaf and curl it and staple it or spray it. It would all be natural. So, and I've crisscrossed these now. And what I'm actually going to do is, because I just like being a little bit different, is where we're threading the steel grass across, what I've actually done is, because I love those Hypericum Cocoa Casino berries so much, I've actually threaded them onto this steel grass. And now we're actually going to, again, still repeat the pattern of taking it diagonally across, but you're just going to have like a little spray, a little fountain almost of these Hypericum berries. So by doing that, there is no way that you can call this vegetative. I think where we've used the moss at the bottom, it's a fantastic texture. It's really soft, it's a nice vibrant green as well, nice colour. And so that just means that, you know, I haven't got to put lots of bulky foliage at the bottom. It just means that, you know, we can have that space lower down as well. So now, obviously, these actual steel grass with the Hypericum berries threaded on, are actually going the opposite way, almost creating like a little arch. And it's not my garden gate arch, but as I say, it's just inspired by. And I think that's the great thing about art, is being inspired by things and putting your own take on situations. So obviously we started with the cane, making just a line really for us to follow, and then we put some really bold structure at the back with the phormium leaves, and then we started adding the flowers and building up those different layers. Our little filler flowers of the different varieties of our all of our different alstroemeria, and then finally just adding a little bit of fun really with the Hypericum berries. And just before I turn this round, I'm just going to snip one off the back. I'm just going to show you, it's really simple. So if you take one of the berries and you snip off the leaves flush with the base of the Hypericum berry. That's really easy if you just take one of your florist wires If you don't have a wire, you could probably just use a pin right through the centre. And then taking your end of your steel grass, just like threading a needle, you just push it gently through, pull it out the other end as if you're threading, and then because it's juiciness of it will just hold it in wherever you decide you want it. And you just thread as many of those on as you like. I'll just do another one and show you again. And as I say, it just creates a little bit of fun. I've threaded beads before onto bear grass and steel grass. So the bear grass you get is a lot more softer. But what I like about this is it's really does hold its form really well. So the actual Latin name for the steel grass is, and I have to get this right, Xanthopteria. It's quite a mouthful, so it's easy why we call it flexigrass or steel grass. So just 2 on there, I'm just going to keep those 2. I'm just going to place this final piece lower down. So I hope you've been inspired by my secret garden. As I say, it was a little bit of fun to do something a little bit different, because I usually like quite structured designs. So it was nice to challenge myself, particularly as we can in lockdown. I think it's come across with all kinds of challenges. So I'm just going to turn this round. But before I do, I'm going to place one final little carnation down the bottom just to bring that colour through. So there we have, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world, whatever time of day or night it is, I hope that you today will be inspired. So this is my little take on my secret garden, my little thicket, my little archway, my little bit of romance, spreading the floral love, spreading the floral joy to you in your homes. So take care everybody, thank you for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you sometime soon. Bye for now, and thank you.